Everybody wants Jrue Holiday. That seems to be the consensus. Whenever I'm hooping or just run into an NBA fan and I'm talking to them about their team and what moves they could possibly make this time of the year, that seems to be the one player that everybody's like, oh man, I'd love Jrue Holiday. I'd love Jrue Holiday, right? So I'm like, all right, well, I'd love Giannis Antetokounmpo too, but no, that's not quite as extreme. I want to start off by saying, Laker fans, y'all aren't in this conversation. I know you think you're in every conversation, and that's no shot, man. I mean, it is what it is, but let's be real here. And it's not that you couldn't make it happen. I didn't even look. I just know from a relationship standpoint, it's not going to happen because, remind you, Anthony Davis, I don't got to tell you how it all went down. You think now they're going to send Jrue Holiday to LA? Like, oh yeah, here y'all, let's make sure you get the ring. Let us give you our other assets. So Laker fans, sorry, y'all ain't in this conversation. I'm going to try to make this snappy, and I'm going to go through a handful of teams here that I came up with some proposals with, not necessarily the greatest deals for them, but the assets of what could they possibly give up. Not saying they would give them up, right? But this is, if they were all in and they really wanted Jrue, this is what they could give up somewhat realistically, all right? So let's start with the first one here. And these aren't they're kind of in order. I want to shout out my guy, Stevie Ray. Pinned in the comments is an article that we kind of went back and forth with this and picked out some trades here that would work. And so go ahead, and he's going to give more in-depth details of the process of these while I kind of just give them to you, right? So first, Phoenix. DeAndre Ayton, Tyler Johnson, and I don't know, a draft pick, right? There's always the possibility of a pick. Now the Suns kind of sit in that area where, is it going to be a lottery pick or not? And, I think, and you're going to hear some reoccurring themes because I think what makes Jrue Holiday such a coveted player is his versatility. Allows him to fit in a lot of places, right? And Phoenix is a place where he fits perfectly with Booker because they can both play on ball or off ball, and then they can both defend 1 through 3. And so that versatility there would be an ideal fit. Another defensive-minded guy you bring in there, and they've been searching, Rubio, he started off well, but, that's how Rubio is hit or miss at times, you know what I mean? And so they go ahead and get Jrue, and I guess the question, the red flag, I want to bring up like some of the negatives with some of these proposed deals as well. It's not all good, obviously. I think that it would perhaps unbalance the roster. Now you have most of your money committed to the backcourt or guard players with Rubio, Booker, Jrue Holiday. Tyler Johnson is an expiring contract, so he, that comes off the books for New Orleans. And then obviously you get DeAndre Ayton, former number 1 pick, hasn't played a ton of basketball. So, I think the question is, are the Suns selling high or are they selling low? And obviously the deal would be predicated on how much do the Pelicans like Ayton. I think that on paper, he does fit with Zion because he doesn't necessarily clog up the paint. He has a nice touch on his shot. I could see it extending all the way out to 3 at some point. It's not there yet, right? But a negative for New Orleans would be they did just draft Jackson Hayes, right? And I don't think you can play Hayes and Ayton on the floor at the same time. I know Ayton maybe thinks he can play the 4, but that's not ideal. I don't think he can defend the floor as athletic as he is. And so, those would be the gives and the takes. And again, ultimately that deal boils down to what do the Pelicans think of Ayton? Are the Suns selling high right now? Because a lot of the times it's like you look at this kid, James Wiseman, in the draft, right? He pulled himself out of Memphis after the controversy. Is his stock going to go up? Is he going to become the number 1 pick this year by default, by not playing, by what we're not seeing? Right? And so Ayton, we haven't seen a lot. And so I think his stock is still relatively high. The more we see him, is it going to lower or is it going to get higher? Right? All right. Next one, Golden State Warriors. D'Angelo Russell for Jrue Holiday straight up. I'm going to put a Warrior trade in here. And now, okay, so here's how I'm selling this. It's the windows and trajectory of these teams. Meaning Jrue Holiday, what is he, 28, 29 years old? He fits with the core 3 of Clay, Steph, and Draymond in their age and their timetable to win another championship. Again, Drew's versatility, a much more defensive-minded player than D'Angelo Russell. He can slide in, play the 2, play the 1, play the 3, protect Steph from guarding, some of these better scoring guards, where right now, if Steph was healthy, when he comes back healthy, let me ask you this, Warrior fans. who guards like the Damian Lillards or, the James Hardens, whoever, Russell Westbrooks, these backcourts with these elite scorers, which it seems like almost every team has. In the past, Steph has always been able to hide off those guys. But with D'Lo, you might be asking Steph to do it at 31. Do you want him doing that? Do you just let D'Lo take his lumps? So the point would be Jrue fits their window. He's a defensive-minded player. He fits there. Now for New Orleans, it fits their window as well. D'Angelo's only 23, right? So it fits their trajectory moving forward with their young players, and Zion obviously being at the front of that. He is immediately a great pick and roll partner for Jackson Hayes. Okay, I think that you bring up concerns from both sides. I do bring up, and this you could, to be fair, you could bring this up with any player in the league, but Jrue Holiday hasn't exactly been an Iron Man. You do get concerned with his injury history headed into his 30s. I think that's one thing that Golden State would have to look at. From a New Orleans perspective, does D'Lo take the ball out of Lonzo and Ingram's hands too much? Do they even keep Ingram? We'll talk a little bit more about that with some of these other proposed trades. But that's just a straight up one-for-one deal. And obviously New Orleans, because some of these other deals, as you see, it's based off potential. And D'Lo, a lot of what he at 23, there is still potential, but he is kind of a proven commodity as far as these deals go. So that's number 2. Number 3, I'm going to go to the South in Miami. And again, Miami, and I'm going to do more of these trade videos so long as the trade deadline hits. You know what I look forward to more actually than these proposed hypothetical ones is actually reacting and responding to big trades. So then we know what's what, and we can actually give like real life takes. And so I'm looking forward to actual deals being made. But anyway, Miami's going to be in a lot of these because of the assets they have. Now, this one's going to be Justice Winslow, Tyler Hero, and James Johnson. And I know Miami said Tyler Hero is off the table. He's untouchable. That's a little hard to believe. I know he's dripping in swag. I know he's exciting, but come on now, he's not untouchable. And this would be an all-in move by the Heat to win right now. We talk about windows, time frames of basically what I mean by that is you look at the franchise player on your team, the star player, his age. How many more years does he have to be in his prime? And you kind of have to match your players around that, right? And that's would be bringing in Jrue to pair with Jimmy Butler. You still have Bam Adebayo, and you're getting a proven commodity to try to come out of the East right now. I'm sure they probably think they can come out of the East anyway. But Jrue, again, being a defensive-minded player, is going to fit right in on, off ball, and it hurts their depth a little bit, but they do get off the James Johnson contract, who I believe is not in the rotation, right? And so I don't have to do a whole lot of explaining why Miami would like it. I know you're losing Hero. And then for New Orleans, Hero is the prize. Right now, could there be picks involved in this? I don't know. It just depends. Protected, weird ones. There's all sorts of weird deals with picks at the end of these deals. But Tyler Hero is the selling point, man, because you're getting, again, a young player to fit with your core who's a pure shooter to space the floor. Like they brought in Redick, right, for Zion ideally. Lonzo, and because they don't have a bunch of shooting. Hero is a young Redick and probably potentially going to be, I don't know, man. Redick's had a very long, productive career, so that's no knock on him, but Hero looks to have more potential because of he's a little bigger, right, and he's more athletic and he handles the ball better, but he would do the same thing as far as spacing, dribble handoffs go and stuff like that. Who knows, maybe they throw in a Duncan Robinson, right? Basically they have the assets to get Jrue Holiday if they chose to go all in. The question is, does Riley mortgage the future? Next up, Chicago Bulls. Thaddeus Young, who's basically a contract, right? Lauri Markkanen and Kobe White. I think, and so much like the Suns trade, I think that this one would be predicated off how much does New Orleans like Lauri Markkanen. Kind of a disappointing year. I think he's picked things up recently, right? But on paper, right, he is an ideal guy, a spacer, a stretch big. Again, you're trying to fit it around Zion, another young-aged guy. And then Kobe White, I think, would be better suited as a six-man, a guy that just doesn't have to run an offense but can just come in and score, right? He's got good, versatile size. They do have some young guards there, but I don't think any with the talent or pedigree of Kobe. What was he, like the 7th pick, right? And then Chicago, Once again, just like in Phoenix with Booker, and like you're hearing with a lot of these other teams that are trying to get Jrue Holiday, you're pairing him with a young guard who's much more offensively minded, and it'll enable Chicago to hide LaVine, right? And Jrue guards that other elite guard. Pairing him would be a good fit for LaVine in the backcourt there, and then they still have Wendell Carter Jr., some of the youth there. But again, how much does New Orleans like marketing, and is Chicago, I guess the question, if you're a Bulls fan, is that too much? Bulls fans, let me know, man. It's not like I'm watching a lot of Bulls games. Is that too much to give up for Jrue? I mean, those are two of your top lottery picks from this season and a few seasons ago, but you're getting a proven guy to go with LaVine. A lot of these franchises, Chicago, Phoenix, Atlanta, we're going to talk about here in a second. They've been bad so long. Does that play into the equation of how willing you are to give up some of these guys you've just drafted? Because like out here, I know in the Valley, you talk to Suns fans, they don't care if they get the 8th seed and get swept by the Lakers, right? They want the 8th seed that bad. It's been too long. And I think a lot of the fan bases that it's been a struggle, the Kings and stuff like that, they just want to sniff the playoffs, even if it costs some of the future. Let's move on to Atlanta, and that deal would be DeAndre Hunter. Evan Turner is an expiring salary, and then one of their draft picks. I think they own a few. Now, if that draft pick ends up number 3, I don't know where that lands. I think that deal is predicated on what that draft pick would look like. Now, you would imagine John Collins getting healthy. Is he healthy? He's in and out of the lineup. I know he took a fall in Boston the other night, I believe. But you imagine bringing in Jrue would probably knock that draft pick to around 8 or 9 rather than top 3 or 5. But, you've heard the rumors Atlanta's after Drummond, and they do need a rim protector. You look at all you hear about Atlanta is with Travis Schlenk, the former Warrior executive. They're trying to follow the Warriors model, Steph Curry, Trae Young, right? And the key thing is what's allowed Steph, I want to say allowed, but what maybe goes dismissed is Klay Thompson unlocks Steph, because Steph, once again, I already explained with the D'Lo trade, gets to hide defensively. Trae has nowhere to hide. They don't have any good defenders. That was the thinking in drafting DeAndre Hunter, but he's not really a guard defender. He's more of a wing defender, right? And so you bring in Jrue, and all of a sudden, you can hide Trae a little better defensively, and you can take away some of that playmaking responsibility, because I know the numbers are godly and it's fun to watch Trae in that pick and roll every time down. He ain't built for that, right? Like he can't sustain this load. He's not Luka Doncic. He's not that big of a dude. And so I think it would be wise for Atlanta moving forward to take some of that ball handling responsibility away from Trae and then get him help with the bigger defender. I know Kevin Huerter is starting there, but can he guard like point guards? No, he's not that type of athlete. Okay, and shout out again, my guy Stevie Ray. Look for us to collaborate. We're not quite sure how this may happen on what platforms, and trying to get perhaps some sort of blog going where we can get more discussion going. This was one of his trades. His full article, again, is going to be down in the description here or pinned in the comments. So take a look, because he has some other deals. He has one for Kings fans and some other stuff that's explained. But this one was for the 76ers, Al Horford and Josh Richardson, and 2 protected first-round picks. I'm not sure I agree with my guy on the picks, but I don't know. I think maybe, you know what, the more I hear about what it would take to get off of Al Horford at this point, maybe it would cost them some picks. You could throw Thibault in there possibly. You're going to have to incentivize a team, I think, to take Al Horford at this point. And the selling point, again, Reed, he gets into it better, but basically Al obviously can somewhat be a stretch big, a playmaker, and then just more of a mentor for Zion. And you probably look at that roster now and you say, all right, Jrue would be the mentor for these young guys. Al, obviously a great locker room dude, and probably a better mentor for a forward, for a guy like Zion, as far as like on-court stuff to do and how to take care of your body as a bigger dude. But, I will say this about Al Horford. I think that the situation, Brett Brown in Philadelphia, it's not doing him any favors. It's not making him look great. But I think that Al has had an old man's game already for quite a few years. So I don't think he's going to all of a sudden fall off a cliff. I think as long as he is healthy I think he can still be productive because, again, he hasn't been relying on his athleticism for quite some time now, since his Atlanta days. And so, that would be feasible. Obviously, you're getting picks. Josh Richardson is a versatile guy you put in there. And then I don't got to explain it for the Sixers. As you see, J.J. Redick coming back to Philly. They do miss him and his handoffs, right? And then Jrue obviously is just what the doctor ordered as far as in Philadelphia. This is actually, now that I think about it, both these guys coming back to Philly, right? Because Jrue was drafted there. Was he drafted there? I know he started his career there. So you bring those guys back into a community they're familiar with, and it would be just what the doctor ordered. So maybe that's where those picks come in that Stevie put in there, because they'd have to highly incentivize it. All right, I've got a couple more for you. I'm not so sure about this one, but I played with it. It works. Minnesota, straight up Andrew Wiggins for Jrue Holiday. Now, I think that this would be predicated on, obviously, how much they like Wiggins. The first thing that comes to y'all's mind probably is, well, they've got Ingram, right? And if they made this deal, it would probably indicate that they're going to not give Ingram that max deal. Maybe they will. Can you have too many wings? You could also make the argument now. This is probably blasphemy. I shouldn't say this, but I'll say it anyway. So, I mean, they could be like Kawhi and Paul George. You got Kawhi, Paul George, Ingram, Wiggins. Nah, man, I'm going too far. But you see what I'm saying? I don't think you can be overloaded at the wing position. You look at Boston, right? So you could keep both of them, right? It'd be a straight up deal. Maybe picks involved or some like supplementary pieces here. Wiggins, I think he's playing better. Maybe a change of environment, and it would be what it would be. For Minnesota, this would be an obvious move to please Karl Anthony Towns. Jeff Teague ain't it, right? We know the history of point guards problems they've had in Minnesota. And so Jrue steps right in and kind of rights the ship, and their hope would be like, all right, Towns is no longer like unhappy because he's got another star to play with, right? Now, almost at 20 minutes here. My last trade is going to be the Denver Nuggets. And this is a team that I heard a lot of the media kind of grumbling. When Jrue Holiday, it was first made known that Jrue could be on the block, a lot of teams pointed Denver out. Now, there's various ways they could acquire him. The deal that I had played with was something like Gary Harris, Jeremy Grant, and maybe a draft pick. But as you look at their roster, their depth is so strong. And then with Michael Porter Jr. coming on, now, does that open up the door for them to maybe try to piece together a package for Jrue? Not with Porter Jr., obviously, but just because they've got guys that that deserve minutes that probably aren't getting minutes. And so it would be kind of like an all-in move right now, mortgage some of that depth, mortgage some of that youth for Jrue Holiday, bring in another vet. You still got Millsap, Jokic, you kind of got a big three there. You still got Jamal Murray, right? And then Gary Harris for New Orleans, I think is similar to Jrue Holiday. I think he's much younger, and they'd have him for a longer time here. But I think that he does similar things. He's not as good. Don't get it twisted. He's not as good. But at a certain point, I think he's that type of player where he's a bigger versatile guard who can do multiple things, doesn't necessarily need to be on the ball. But again, if Denver came calling for Jrue, New Orleans could have, I think, their pick at a lot of these young guys and kind of package something together. And that might be the most realistic deal for him if Denver wanted to shuffle things up and really go all in this year. But once again, I'm interested to hear from y'all. Check out the article below, describes it more. But which trades do you think are more likely? Give me some grades. Throw out some ones I missed. If your team wasn't on here and I missed you, let me know what your team would offer, at least what you think they would offer. Laker fans, man, they ain't getting Jrue. You ain't getting Jrue. They salty. So you got to just worry about that tailbone from AD right now. But as always, man, hit that like, share, and subscribe. I'm out, y'all. I've been winning so long, it's like alchemy.